The massive space station hung like a metal moon between two burning stars. Its crystal walls caught the light from both suns and threw rainbows across the dark void. Inside the great chamber, beings from across the galaxy sat in floating chairs that moved without sound. This was the heart of power in the known universe. This was where the Galactic Dominion made decisions that affected trillions of lives. Admiral Tejo walked through the tall doors with steady steps. His black uniform bore no decorations except for a small blue patch showing Earth. Behind him came Ambassador So-Min, her face calm despite the weight of what she carried. The other humans in their group moved like soldiers even though they wore no weapons. The aliens in the chamber watched them with eyes that glowed, flickered, or stared without blinking. The council speaker rose from his throne-like chair. Vrextal stood 3 times taller than any human, his insect body covered in shells that shifted from green to purple. His many eyes focused on the human delegation like a hunter watching prey. Around him sat the most powerful beings in the galaxy. The Saurok delegation hissed softly, their reptile heads weaving back and forth. The Luminate flickered like living lightning in their energy forms. The Draknari pounded their 4 arms on the metal table, making sounds like thunder. Vrextal spoke in a voice that buzzed like 1,000 wasps. Humans of the planet called Earth, you have received our final offer. Your world will submit to Dominion rule. Your people will serve the greater good of the galaxy. Your resources will feed our empire. You have 1 rotation of your planet to give us your answer. The chamber fell silent. Every being present knew what this meant. For 300 years, no species had ever refused the Dominion's demands. Those who tried to resist simply disappeared. Their worlds became empty rocks floating in space. Their names were erased from all records. The galaxy learned not to say no to the council. Admiral Tejo stepped forward. His boots clicked on the crystal floor. He looked up at the towering speaker without fear or respect. We have discussed your offer with our people. Every nation on Earth has voted. Every colony in our system has spoken. We have reached a decision. Ambassador So-Min moved beside him. She held a simple piece of white paper in her hands. No fancy technology, no glowing displays, just words written on tree pulp from their home world. She handed it to a floating drone that carried it up to the speaker's throne. Vrextal took the paper with one of his sharp claws. His compound eyes scanned the words. For a moment, nothing happened. Then his head tilted to one side like a confused animal. He read the paper again. His shell began to change color, cycling through shades of red and black. This cannot be correct, he buzzed. Scan this document again. The drone's lights flashed as it examined the paper. Document confirmed authentic, speaker. Translation verified accurate. Vrextal held up the paper so the entire council could see. These humans have written only 3 words. The chamber erupted into chaos. Beings shouted in languages that sounded like music, grinding metal or rushing water. Some delegates leaped from their chairs, others flashed with angry light. The Draknari representative Keth Mar slammed all 4 fists on his table so hard it cracked. Impossible! Keth Mar roared. No single world species has ever dared challenge the Dominion. These humans number less than 10 billion on one primitive planet. We command over 1,000 worlds with populations beyond counting. Admiral Tejo raised his voice above the noise. The paper says what it says. We declare war. The words hit the chamber like a physical blow. Silence fell so complete that the only sounds were the hum of the station's power systems and the distant rumble of the twin stars outside. Counselor Yithral of the ancient ethereal collective spoke in a voice like wind through crystal caves. You do not understand what you have done, small humans. We have weapons that can crack planets like eggs. We have fleets that darken the space between stars. We have armies that have conquered galaxies. Ambassador So-Min stepped forward. We understand perfectly. You demanded our freedom. We choose to keep it. Vrextal's shell flashed bright red. You choose death, then. Your species will be remembered as the shortest-lived rebellion in galactic history. Maybe, Admiral Tejo said, but we will be remembered. The speaker pressed a control on his throne. Alarms began wailing throughout the station. Red lights flashed in the walls. Emergency broadcasts started transmitting across the galaxy at faster than light speed. In a few hours, every civilized world would know that the impossible had happened. Security. Drones will escort you to your ship, Vrextal announced. You have 1 day to evacuate your system before our fleets arrive. We grant you this mercy because your courage, however foolish, deserves respect. Admiral Tejo bowed slightly. We thank the Council for this kindness, but we will not be evacuating. As the humans turned to leave, Councillor Kethmar called out. Why? Why choose extinction over servitude? Your species could live as servants. Your children could survive under our rule. Why throw away all life for the dream of freedom? Admiral. Tejo stopped at the chamber doors. He looked back at the assembled might of the galaxy's ruling powers. Because some things are worth more than survival. Because freedom is not something you give away to live one more day. Because humans would rather die standing than live kneeling. The great doors closed behind the human delegation. In the chamber, the council members sat in stunned silence. They had ruled the galaxy for centuries through fear and overwhelming force. No species had ever looked at their vast armies and said no. No world had ever chosen war over submission. Vrextal stared at the piece of paper still in his claw. 3 words that would change everything. 3 words that would start the greatest war the galaxy had ever seen. 3 words that proved some species could not be broken by threats alone. We declare war. Outside the station, the human ship prepared to leave. It was small compared to the massive Dominion vessels that filled the space around them. Just a simple transport with barely enough weapons to fight off pirates. But inside that ship sat people who had just declared war on an empire that controlled most of the known galaxy. Admiral Tejo sat in the captain's chair as they moved away from the station. Send the message to Earth, he ordered. Tell them it is done. Tell them we have 1 day to prepare for the storm. Ambassador So-Min stood beside him, watching the station grow smaller behind them. Do you think we have any chance at all? The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. I think we have something they don't understand. I think we have something they've never faced before. What's that? The fury of a free people who refuse to surrender. Behind them, the Galactic Dominion began to mobilize for war against a single small world that had dared to say no. They expected it to be over quickly. They expected the humans to beg for mercy when they saw the size of the fleet coming for them. They had no idea what humans were capable of when their backs were against the wall. Fleet Admiral Zorthak stood before the massive display screen in his command center, studying the data about humanity's home system. The numbers made him want to laugh. 1 small yellow star with 9 planets, only 3 of them inhabited. The main world had less than 8 billion people scattered across its surface. Their technology looked primitive compared to Dominion standards. They had only recently developed faster-than-light travel, and their weapons were still based on throwing metal projectiles at high speed. Send the 47th Subjugation Fleet, he ordered his aide, a nervous Cathari with blue skin and too many arms. 300 ships should be more than enough to handle this minor rebellion before word spreads to other systems. The aide's tentacles moved quickly across his control panel. Fleet Admiral, should we perhaps send more ships? The humans seemed very confident when they declared war. Zorthak turned his massive reptilian head toward the aide. His yellow eyes glowed with amusement. Confident? A species that fights with metal bullets against energy weapons? A world that has never faced a real military force? No. 300 ships will crush them so completely that other worlds will remember why they should never challenge the Dominion. On Earth, President Jin Wu stood before the United Earth Assembly in an emergency session that had been called within hours of Admiral Tejo's return. The great hall buzzed with voices speaking dozens of languages as representatives from every nation gathered to hear what would happen next. The president raised his hand, and the room fell silent. Citizens of Earth, he began, his voice carrying clearly through the translation systems. Today we have crossed a line that can never be uncrossed. We have told the galaxy that Earth will not surrender. We have chosen war over slavery. Now we must prepare for what comes next. The vote was swift and unanimous, total mobilization. Every factory would be converted to war production. Every shipyard would build vessels of war. Every able person would serve in whatever way they could. From the moon colonies to the Mars terraforming stations, humanity began the greatest military build-up in their history. Dr. Hyojin led a team of scientists into a secure facility hidden deep beneath the mountains of Korea. For 20 years, she had worked on projects that officially did not exist. The Prometheus Institute had studied every piece of alien technology they could find. Crashed Dominion scout ships, broken pieces of equipment left behind by visiting traders, energy signatures detected by their deep space sensors. All of it had been carefully examined and slowly understood. "Show them Project Ragnarok," she told her assistant as they entered the main laboratory. The weapons were beautiful and terrible. Plasma cannons that could burn through any known armor. Gravity drives that could make a ship dance through space like a leaf in the wind. Energy shields that bent incoming attacks away from their targets. But the most important development was something the aliens had never created. Human-built artificial intelligence systems that could think faster than any biological brain and predict enemy movements with frightening accuracy. Captain Dong-Soo walked through the asteroid belt shipyard, where his new command waited. The Soul's Fury looked nothing like the gentle exploration ships humanity had built before. It was a weapon designed for one purpose: to kill alien warships. Its fusion reactor burned hotter than the surface of the sun. Its armor was made from materials that did not exist in nature. Its weapons could reach across vast distances of space to strike targets with perfect precision. "How many ships do we have ready?" he asked the shipyard commander. 43 combat vessels of various sizes, Captain. Not many compared to what's coming, but each one packs enough firepower to take on 10 Dominion ships. Captain Dong-Soo nodded grimly. "It will have to be enough." The Dominion fleet arrived at the edge of the solar system exactly one day after the ultimatum expired. 300 ships emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with the dark metal that marked Dominion military vessels. Each ship was larger than anything humanity had ever built. Their weapons could glass a continent from orbit. Their shields could absorb the energy output of a small star. Fleet Commander Yarketh expected to find a world in panic. He expected desperate surrender messages flooding his communication systems. He expected the humans to beg for the mercy they had refused when offered peacefully. Instead, his sensors detected something impossible. The inner system was filled with defensive platforms that had not been there according to their intelligence reports. Mining lasers had been repositioned to face outward toward space. Industrial facilities on the asteroids had been converted into weapons that could reach across millions of kilometers. And moving out from behind the giant planet called Jupiter came a small fleet of human warships that looked nothing like the civilian vessels in their databases. "This makes no sense," Yarketh muttered as he studied the tactical display. "Intelligence said they had no military fleet. How did they build all this in one day?" His tactical officer's voice was uncertain. "Sir, it appears they have been preparing for this moment for much longer than we realized." The Battle of Neptune's Gate began when the human fleet opened fire from extreme range. The Dominion ships were still moving into attack formation when streams of plasma fire and gravity-guided missiles began tearing through their formations. Human ships moved in patterns that defied standard tactical doctrine, appearing and disappearing like ghosts as their new stealth systems confused Dominion sensors. Captain Dong-Soo stood on the bridge of Soul's Fury as enemy fire lit up the space around them. "Target their command ship," he ordered. "All weapons, full power." The fusion lance that erupted from his ship's main gun was like a miniature star reaching across space. It struck the Dominion flagship's shields and burned through them as if they were made of paper. The massive alien vessel shuddered as secondary explosions tore through its hull. The battle raged for 6 hours. Human ships danced between the slower Dominion vessels, striking hard and fast, before vanishing into the asteroid fields. The mining platforms fired their converted industrial lasers with deadly accuracy. Defense satellites that looked like harmless communication relays revealed themselves to be missile launchers loaded with warheads that could crack a mountain. When the fighting ended, space around Neptune was filled with drifting wreckage. 287 Dominion ships had been destroyed or damaged beyond repair. The remaining 13 vessels limped away into hyperspace, carrying news that would shock the galaxy. Humanity had lost only 3 ships, 3 vessels against nearly 300. But those 3 ships had taken over 100 enemy vessels with them as they died, their crews fighting to the last breath, and their AI systems continuing to fire even after their human operators were gone. Fleet Commander Yarketh sat in his damaged command chair as his flagship barely made it back to Dominion space. His proud fleet had been shattered by a species that was supposed to be helpless. His report would have to explain how 300 advanced warships had been defeated by fewer than 50 human vessels. "Send word to High Command," he ordered weakly. "Tell them we need more ships. Many more ships." Admiral Zorthak read the battle report 3 times before he could believe what it said. The 47th Subjugation Fleet had been destroyed. Not just defeated, but annihilated. The humans had fought with weapons and tactics that should not have existed. They had ships that could become invisible and weapons that burned hotter than stars. "How is this possible?" he demanded of his intelligence staff. "How could they have technology we have never seen before?" The answer came from a frightened analyst who had been studying human transmissions. "Sir, we believe they have been preparing for this war for decades. Every human ship that left their system, every trade mission, every exploration vessel may have been gathering intelligence and setting up hidden supply bases." The fleet admiral's blood turned cold. If the humans had been planning this for decades, if their declaration of war was not desperate madness but calculated strategy, then the Dominion faced something it had never encountered before. An enemy that had studied them, learned their weaknesses, and prepared accordingly. Across the galaxy, the news spread like wildfire. Humanity had won the first battle. A single world species had faced the might of the Dominion fleet and emerged victorious. On worlds where other species lived under Dominion rule, beings gathered in secret to whisper about the impossible. The humans had shown that the Dominion could be beaten. The empire that had ruled the galaxy for 3 centuries had bled. The myth of their invincibility was broken. And somewhere in the dark between the stars, human ships that officially did not exist began moving toward their next targets. The news of humanity's victory sent shockwaves across the galaxy that reached every corner of Dominion space. Fleet Commandant Yil Kresh stood in the Great War Room on the fortress world of Keth Major, watching as star maps showed the movement of the largest military force ever assembled. 10,000 ships from hundreds of different worlds converged on the Centauri sector like a swarm of metal locusts. Each vessel represented the finest military technology of dozens of species. Together, they formed the Grand Armada, a force capable of sterilizing entire star systems. "This ends now," Yil Kresh declared to his assembled commanders. "We will not allow one primitive species to challenge 3 centuries of galactic order. The humans will serve as an example to any other world that dreams of rebellion." But the humans had not been sitting idle while the Dominion gathered its forces. Admiral Te-Ho stood in the command center buried deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, surrounded by displays showing the movement of ships across dozens of star systems. For 50 years, every human vessel that had left the solar system had been part of a vast deception. Exploration ships had secretly established hidden supply depots in empty systems. Trade vessels had built communication relays disguised as space debris. Scientific expeditions had mapped hyperspace routes that did not appear on any Dominion charts. "Phase 2 begins now," Admiral Te-Ho announced to his staff. "Operation Shadow Strike is authorized." Commander Acha received the order aboard her ship Hidden Blade as it drifted invisible near a Dominion supply convoy. Her vessel was one of 50 ships in the Shadow Fleet, equipped with technology that bent light around their hulls and made them nearly impossible to detect. The stealth system had been developed by studying how certain deep-sea creatures on Earth made themselves invisible to predators. "All ships weapons-free," she commanded over the encrypted channel. "Remember, we are not here to fight fair. We are here to win." The attack on the convoy lasted less than 10 minutes. The Dominion ships never saw their attackers. One moment they were traveling peacefully through hyperspace. The next, their hulls were being torn apart by weapons that fired from empty space. 30 cargo vessels carrying weapons and supplies for the Grand Armada vanished without sending a single distress signal. Across Dominion space, similar attacks began happening with terrifying frequency. Communication relays went silent. Supply depots exploded for no apparent reason. Isolated outposts reported strange signals before all contact was lost. The humans were fighting a kind of war the galaxy had never seen before, striking from shadows and disappearing before anyone could respond. General Wu Jin stood on the bridge of the transport ship Incheon's Thunder as it approached the mining world of Kepler 442b. Intelligence reports said the planet held 2 million Tolrani slaves who had been working the crystal mines for 3 generations. The Dominion garrison consisted of the 12th Legion, supposedly one of their most elite units. "Remember," he told his soldiers over the communication system, "we are not just fighting for Earth. We are fighting for every being in this galaxy who has been ground under the Dominion's heel. Today we show them that tyranny has an expiration date." The landing ships descended through the planet's purple atmosphere like falling stars. The Dominion forces were expecting a standard assault, something they could counter with their energy, shields and plasma weapons. Instead, they faced soldiers who moved like demons through the crystal caverns, treating wounds that would cripple other species as minor inconveniences. Human infantry charged through weapons fire that should have stopped any attack. Their armor was designed to keep them fighting even with massive damage. Their weapons fired projectiles that could punch through any known material. But most terrifying of all was their refusal to retreat. Dominion soldiers were used to enemies, who would break and run when faced with overwhelming force. Humans just kept coming. The battle cry echoed through the crystalline tunnels. "For Terra! For freedom!" The words became a nightmare that haunted Dominion dreams. When the fighting ended 12 hours later, 2 million Tolrani slaves stood free under an alien sky. The 12th Legion, which had never lost a battle in 400 years of service, had been destroyed to the last soldier. The victory was broadcast across underground networks that the Dominion did not even know existed. On 100 worlds, subjugated species began to whisper. The humans were not just fighting for themselves. They were liberating entire populations. They offered hope to beings who had forgotten what freedom looked like. Fleet Admiral Na-eun commanded the most audacious operation in human military history as her fleet moved toward the Vega shipyards. The massive construction facility had been building Dominion warships for over a millennium. It was protected by energy barriers that could stop asteroids and defensive platforms that could destroy small moons. "Intelligence says the defenses are impossible to breach," her tactical officer reported. "Intelligence said we were impossible to defeat," Admiral Na-eun replied. "Sometimes impossible just means no one has been desperate enough to try." Her fleet used a combination of captured alien technology and human engineering that pushed the laws of physics to their breaking point. Gravity bombs tore holes in the defensive barriers. Quantum torpedoes phased through solid matter to explode. Inside shield generators, ships equipped with experimental drives appeared inside the facility itself, their crews fighting boarding actions in the construction bays where new Dominion vessels were being built. The Vega shipyards burned for 3 weeks. 1,000 years of accumulated shipbuilding knowledge died in the flames. The construction capacity of the entire Dominion fleet was reduced by 30% in a single devastating attack. But the greatest victory was not military. As news of the shipyard's destruction spread, the Murtari Confederacy secretly opened diplomatic channels with Earth. The crystalline Voidsingers began sharing navigation data with human explorers. The energy beings known as the Photon Collective offered their advanced shielding technology in exchange for human protection from Dominion retaliation. Ambassador So Min worked 18-hour days in hidden locations, building what would become known as the Coalition of Free Worlds. Species after species joined the rebellion, inspired by humanity's impossible victories and attracted by their promise that no single race would ever again dominate the galaxy. The silicon-based lithoids contributed materials harder than diamond for human ship armor. The aquatic deep mine offered biotechnology that could heal wounds in minutes. The gaseous nebuloids shared their ability to hide entire fleets in cosmic dust clouds. Each new ally brought something unique to the war effort. But more importantly, each new ally proved that the galaxy was ready for change. The Dominion's rule had been based on fear and the belief that resistance was impossible. Humanity had shattered that belief. Fleet Commandant Yil Kresh watched his carefully planned war falling apart piece by piece. His Grand Armada was the largest military force in galactic history, but it was fighting ghosts. human ships appeared. Without warning, struck hard, and vanished before his forces could respond. His supply lines were being cut faster than they could be protected. His communication networks were compromised by mysterious signals that seemed to come from empty space. "How can we fight an enemy we cannot find?" he demanded of his intelligence chief. "Sir, I believe we are not fighting just the humans anymore. Our reports suggest that dozens of species have joined their rebellion. They have turned this from a simple subjugation into a galactic civil war." The Commandant stared at the tactical displays showing the deteriorating situation across multiple star systems. Red markers indicated lost outposts, severed supply lines, and liberated worlds. The Dominion's iron grip on the galaxy was loosening, one system at a time. "Then we use the Purifier fleet," he said finally. "If we cannot rule through fear of our strength, we will rule through fear of our ruthlessness." The words sent a chill through every being in the command center. The Purifier fleet was the Dominion's ultimate weapon, ships designed not for conquest but for complete annihilation. They had sterilized 17 worlds over the centuries, turning entire planets into lifeless rocks as warnings to other species. Now they would be unleashed against Earth itself. The homeworld of the species that had dared to dream of freedom would become a monument to the price of rebellion. But in the dark between the stars, human ships continued their deadly work. Commander HFY's Shadow Fleet struck at targets across the galaxy while Admiral Naun's battle groups liberated world after world. General Wu Jin's ground forces showed enslaved populations what it meant to be free. The galaxy was changing. The old order was dying. And somewhere in the depths of space, humanity prepared for the final battle that would determine whether freedom or tyranny would rule the stars. The Purifier fleet moved through space like a plague of metal death. War Master Theknos commanded from the flagship Eternal Darkness, a vessel so large it cast shadows across entire moons. Behind him followed 500 ships designed for one purpose: the complete eradication of worlds that dared to resist Dominion rule. Their quantum dissolvers could unravel matter at the molecular level, leaving nothing but empty void where planets once existed. "Set course for the Sol system," Theknos commanded his navigator. "It is time to show the galaxy what happens to species that forget their place." The War Master had personally overseen the sterilization of 17 rebellious worlds over his long career. He had watched civilizations that had existed for thousands of years reduced to cosmic dust in a matter of hours. The humans would be no different. Their impossible victories meant nothing against weapons that could unmake reality itself. But across the galaxy, something unprecedented was happening. Ambassador So-Min worked day and night from the secret diplomatic station hidden in the Proxima system, coordinating the largest alliance in galactic history. The coalition of free worlds grew stronger with each passing day as more species chose freedom over servitude. The Murtari Confederacy contributed their fastest ships and most experienced pilots. The crystalline Void Singers shared their ability to communicate across vast distances without using detectable signals. The energy beings of the Photon Collective offered their mastery of electromagnetic fields and force barriers. But the most surprising addition came from within Dominion space itself. The Cathari Resistance, survivors of one of the first worlds the Dominion had conquered, emerged from 3 centuries of hiding to join the fight. They brought with them detailed knowledge of Dominion military tactics and the locations of secret installations that did not appear on any official charts. "We have waited so long for this moment," Cathari leader Velthis told Ambassador So-Min during a secret meeting. "For 300 years, we have pretended to serve while planning for the day someone would be brave enough to strike the first blow. You humans have given us hope again." Dr. Hyojin stood in the expanded Prometheus Institute laboratories as teams of scientists from dozens of species worked together on projects that would have been impossible for any single race to achieve. Human engineering, combined with lithoid materials science and deep-mind biotechnology, was producing weapons and defenses beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. "The hybrid shield generators are ready," she reported to Admiral Tejo during their daily briefing. "By combining our gravity manipulation with photon collective energy barriers, we can now protect entire planets from quantum dissolution attacks." The Admiral nodded grimly. "And the Sol cannon?" "Construction is proceeding on schedule. The solar collection arrays are being installed inside the sun itself. When complete, we will be able to channel our star's entire energy output into a focused beam. The weapon will be ready when the Purifier fleet arrives. The Soul Cannon represented the ultimate expression of human desperation and ingenuity. For decades, automated construction drones had been secretly building a massive energy collection and focusing system within the sun's corona. The project had required advances in materials science that pushed the boundaries of what was possible, creating substances that could survive the temperatures and pressures found inside a star. Captain Dong-Su, now promoted to admiral, coordinated the defense of the solar system from his flagship Soul's Fury. The small human fleet had grown into a massive armada as ships from across the coalition arrived to defend humanity's homeworld. Sleek Murtari cruisers flew alongside. Massive lithoid dreadnoughts, nebuloid vessels that looked like living clouds, floated next to crystalline void singer ships that sang hauntingly as they moved through space. Status report, Admiral Dong-Su requested as he reviewed the defensive preparations. All orbital platforms are online and fully armed, his tactical officer reported. The asteroid belt has been converted into a defensive minefield. Earth's population has been evacuated to the deep shelters. Mars colonial militia is standing by to support the fleet action. The lunar defense stations had been rebuilt and upgraded with coalition technology. What had once been simple research outposts were now fortress installations capable of engaging capital ships. The asteroid belt bristled with hidden weapons platforms and automated defense systems that could track and engage thousands of targets simultaneously, but everyone knew that conventional defenses would not be enough against the Purifier fleet. The Dominion's ultimate weapons could dissolve molecular bonds from ranges measured in light seconds. Their ships could survive the explosion of small stars. Their crews had centuries of experience in the complete destruction of entire worlds. General Wu Jin commanded the ground defenses of Earth itself, coordinating with civilian authorities, to ensure that humanity's homeworld could continue fighting even if the orbital battle was lost. Deep underground bunkers housed not just people, but entire industrial complexes capable of producing weapons and supplies for years of continued resistance. Even if they glass the surface, he told his staff, we will keep fighting from the depths. Humanity did not come this far to surrender our homeworld without making them pay for every meter. The Cathari resistance provided intelligence that changed everything the Coalition knew about the Purifier fleet. Hidden sensors planted throughout Dominion space revealed that the approaching armada was larger than anyone had imagined. Nearly 1,000 ships were converging on Seoul, including experimental vessels equipped with weapons that had never been used in combat. They are not just planning to destroy Earth, Velthes reported during an emergency Coalition Council meeting. They intend to make an example that will terrify the galaxy into submission. Every ship they have, every weapon they possess, all focused on one star system. Ambassador So-min felt the weight of the galaxy's future pressing down on her as she coordinated the coalition response. Species that had been enemies for millennia were working together to defend a world most of them had never seen. Ancient feuds were set aside in the face of a common threat that endangered every free-thinking being in the galaxy. This is no longer just about Earth, she told the assembled delegates. This is about whether tyranny or freedom will shape the future of galactic civilization. If we fail here, the Dominion will rule unopposed for another 1,000 years. The Purifier fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the solar system like a swarm of mechanical death. Their ships were so numerous they blocked out entire star fields. Their quantum dissolvers began charging immediately, preparing to unmake everything within range. War Master Theknos had brought enough firepower to destroy 100 worlds, but he found a solar system transformed into a fortress. The asteroid belt blazed with weapon signatures as hidden platforms revealed themselves. The space around Earth swarmed with ships from dozens of species, all flying in perfect coordination despite their different technologies and tactical doctrines. The moon itself had become a weapon, its surface bristling with energy projectors and missile launchers. This is not what our intelligence predicted, his tactical officer reported nervously. The humans have somehow assembled a fleet that rivals our own in size. War Master Theknos studied the tactical displays with growing unease. The coalition fleet was not arranged in any formation he recognized. Ships were positioned at seemingly random points throughout the system, connected by energy fields that served purposes he could not identify. It looked less like a military formation than some kind of vast machine built from living vessels. No matter. he declared. "Begin the dissolution sequence. Target their homeworld first. Let them watch their precious Earth unravel before we destroy their fleet." The quantum dissolvers fired. Beams of pure negation reached across millions of kilometers, weapons designed to unmake matter at the most fundamental level. But instead of striking Earth, the beams encountered something impossible. A barrier of pure energy surrounded the planet, fed by the combined output of every ship in the Coalition fleet. The dissolution beams struck the barrier and simply stopped existing. The hybrid shield technology developed by Dr. Hyejin's teams had created a defense that could negate even quantum-level attacks. Earth remained untouched, while the Purifier fleet's most devastating weapons proved useless. "Impossible," Technos whispered. "Nothing can stop molecular dissolution. Nothing in the galaxy has that kind of power." His science officer's voice was filled with awe and terror. "Sir, the energy readings from their barrier are off our scales. They are somehow channeling power directly from their star." As if summoned by those words, the sun itself began to change. Solar flares erupted in patterns that had never been seen before. The star's output increased dramatically as massive collection. Arrays hidden in its corona began focusing unimaginable amounts of energy into a single, devastating beam. The Sol cannon fired. A lance of stellar fire reached across the solar system at the speed of light, striking the Purifier fleet's flagship with the concentrated fury of humanity's star. The Eternal Darkness, a ship that had survived the destruction of worlds, simply ceased to exist. The beam continued on into deep space, a warning that could be seen from 1,000 light-years away. The destruction of the Purifier fleet sent shockwaves across the galaxy that reached every corner of civilized space within hours. The sight of humanity's star firing like a weapon had been captured by long-range sensors throughout the sector. The beam of concentrated solar energy continued traveling through space, a visible reminder that the impossible had happened. The Dominion's ultimate weapon had been not just defeated, but completely annihilated. On Dominion worlds across the galaxy, rebellion erupted like wildfire. Species that had been crushed under Imperial rule for centuries suddenly found their courage. The Tolrani, recently liberated by General Wu Jin's forces, shared their liberation techniques with enslaved populations on other worlds. The Cathari resistance emerged from hiding to coordinate uprisings that had been planned for generations. Ancient civilizations that had been reduced to serving the Dominion remembered what freedom felt like. President Jin Wu stood before the reformed Galactic Assembly in a chamber that had once hosted only Dominion-approved delegates. Now representatives from hundreds of free worlds filled the floating seats, speaking in voices that had been silenced for too long. The old council throne where Speaker Vrex Tal had once ruled sat empty, a reminder of an empire that no longer existed. "The galaxy stands at a crossroads," President Jin Wu declared, his words translated into thousands of languages and broadcast to every inhabited world. "We can choose to build something better than what came before, or we can repeat the mistakes that led to tyranny. Humanity offers our hand in friendship to all who seek a future where no single species dominates the stars." The Dominion Council had dissolved itself rather than face war crimes tribunals. Former Councilor Kethmar and the surviving leadership had fled to the Outer Rim territories where they attempted to establish a rump empire with the remnants of their forces. But their influence shrank daily as world after world declared independence and joined the growing coalition. Admiral Teho oversaw the transformation of Earth's military from a desperate defense force into the peacekeeping fleet of the new Galactic Coalition. Human officers worked alongside alien counterparts, sharing the tactical innovations that had won the war. The stealth technology developed by Commander HFY's Shadow Fleet was adapted for peaceful exploration. The devastating weapons created by Dr. Hyejin's teams were modified for construction and asteroid mining. "The hardest part of winning a war," Admiral Teho told a gathering of coalition military leaders, "is knowing when to stop fighting and start building." General Wu Jin led reconstruction efforts on dozens of liberated worlds, working with local populations to rebuild societies that had been shattered by centuries of oppression. On the crystal mines of Kepler 442b, former slaves worked alongside human engineers to transform the excavation sites into beautiful cities that sparkled like jewels under the purple sky. Commander Ai Cha, promoted to admiral, commanded task forces that hunted down Dominion war criminals who had fled into the galactic frontier. Her ships moved through space like avenging spirits, bringing justice to beings who had committed atrocities against entire species. The Shadow Fleet's invisibility technology made it impossible for war criminals to hide, no matter how remote. Their refuges. But the greatest challenge came from within humanity itself. Some humans, intoxicated by their species' sudden rise to galactic prominence, pushed for Earth to replace the Dominion as the new galactic hegemon. Military leaders spoke of human superiority and the right of conquest. Politicians argued that humanity had earned the authority to rule through their victories. Ambassador So-Min fought these voices in the halls of power and the courts of public opinion. She traveled from world to world, speaking to audiences that included humans drunk on victory and aliens wary of new masters. Her message remained constant. Humanity's greatest victory would be ensuring that no single species ever again dominated the galaxy. "We did not fight this war to become the new oppressors," she declared during a heated debate in the Earth Assembly. "We fought to ensure that freedom would outlive us all. If we take the Dominion's place as galactic rulers, then we will have betrayed every being who died believing in a better future." The debate raged for months. Some human colonies declared their intention to establish independent empires in sectors they had liberated. Military units went rogue, attempting to set up their own kingdoms among the stars. For a time, it seemed that humanity might fragment into dozens of competing factions, each seeking to carve out their own domain from the wreckage of the Dominion. The crisis was resolved by Dr. Haye Jin, who made a startling announcement at a joint session of the Coalition Assembly. The Sol Cannon, the weapon that had destroyed the Purifier fleet, was being dismantled. The stellar energy collectors were being removed from the sun and converted into power sources for peaceful purposes. "We built the ultimate weapon to defend our freedom," she explained to the stunned delegates. "Now we destroy it to preserve our souls. No species should have the power to weaponize a star, not the Dominion and not humanity." The dismantling of the Sol Cannon became a symbol of humanity's commitment to a different kind of future. Other species watched in amazement as the humans voluntarily gave up the most powerful weapon ever created. The act convinced many wavering worlds to join the coalition rather than seek protection from human-dominated factions. Years passed. The Terran Federation became one voice among many in the Galactic Coalition, committed to the principle that diversity of thought and governance was the greatest strength of galactic civilization. The old Dominion fragmented into dozens of independent star nations, some joining the coalition, and others maintaining their independence while respecting the new galactic order. Trade flourished between worlds that had been isolated for centuries. Scientific knowledge was shared freely among species that had once been forbidden to communicate. Art and culture bloomed as beings discovered the richness of galactic diversity that had been suppressed under imperial rule. Lieutenant Min Ho served aboard the exploration vessel New Horizons, a ship crewed by representatives from 30 different species. They pushed into uncharted regions of space, seeking new worlds and new civilizations to invite into the galactic community. When his alien crewmates asked about humanity's secret, about how one small world had defeated an empire that had ruled for centuries, he would smile and give them the same answer. "We learned that freedom is worth any price," he would say, "and that no tyranny lasts forever. But most importantly, we learned that the real victory is not in winning wars, but in building something better when the fighting is done." The exploration ship moved deeper into unknown space, its mixed crew working together to expand the boundaries of galactic civilization. Behind them, the galaxy burned with the light of 10,000 free worlds, each one a testament to the day that humanity had looked into the face of absolute power and refused to yield. On Earth, children learned about the war in schools that welcomed students from across the galaxy. They studied the battles and the heroes, but more importantly, they learned about the choices that had shaped the peace that followed. They learned that courage was not just about fighting, but about knowing when to stop fighting and start building. In the museums of liberated worlds, artifacts from the Dominion era served as reminders of what the galaxy had escaped. Empty thrones and broken crowns told the story of an empire that had seemed eternal until it met a species that valued freedom more than survival. And in the depths of space, where new civilizations were still being discovered, the message of the coalition spread, that diversity was strength, that freedom was sacred, and that no being should ever again bow to another, simply because they were told they must. The galaxy had learned that empires built on fear and oppression were ultimately fragile things, no matter how powerful they seemed. But societies built on cooperation and mutual respect could endure among the stars forever, growing stronger with each new world that chose to join them in the light of freedom. The war was over. The peace had begun. And somewhere in the cosmic distance, humanity's children continued to explore, carrying with them the lesson that their species had learned at such great cost. That the future belonged not to conquerors, but to those brave enough to believe in something better.